Hello, welcome. I'm your host, Josh. This is Fusion Fantasy Football presenting next week tonight. Next week tonight is a project that I made to keep you a week ahead of the competition. So, what I do is I look at a whole week ahead. So, I am projecting this week's results and who are all going to be the hot waiver ads and looking ahead at schedules and seeing who you want to be trading for or maybe trading away. Things like that. Once we get into bye weeks, this is going to be really huge for you to secure your streamers for those onesie positions in particular. It can even be useful in a pinch if you have injury. There's a lot of ways that this is going to be able to help you. I did it all last season as a bit of an experiment, and it came out some really well with some really good results. So go ahead, hang out with us. I already did week one. Week one and week two are overlapping a little bit here because we still haven't had any games played in between. From here on out, so next week, every Friday this comes out. Next Friday this will come out. Week one games have already been played, but week two haven't. But I'm already done week two, and I'll be on to week three next week. That's how it works. So let's look at what we have to do. I want to recap really quick what I had last week for week one because you're still going to have a couple days to do something about it. First off, want to talk about James Robinson. I just had to throw it in there because I did call it, check the timestamps before it was all over the place. Brian Edwards, Laviska Shenault, probably pretty hyped up by now. Irv Smith, though, is a good guy you can get, especially to pair with an older tight end. I have a couple in here. I think these guys can have good, really big week ones. So if you can buy them now cheap, you might even be able to flip them. Go ahead and check that out. As far as players, any one of these guys, keep an eye on him. Look, if Will Fuller, he's not having a huge game so far tonight, but whenever it happens, be ready to sell him high. Gronkowski, similar thing. But I do think Jordan Howard is going to have a good game against the Patriots and their depleted linebackers and front seven. So keep an eye on that. I don't think he's going to have as good a season for all remaining 15 games as he might have week one. But let's get into actually week two waivers that you can get for free now. Kendrick Bourne. Look, if Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk cannot play or are limited, Bourne is a guy who's really solid possession guy, going to be a high floor for you here. If the defense can particularly start keying in on Kittle, maybe he doesn't have the huge game everyone is predicting. Maybe Bourne gets a lot of volume. Similarly, Greg Ward with the Eagles. You know the situation there. Djax is a time bomb. Rager barely practiced for the first time in a while today. I expect him still to be a little limited in the usage or the range of motion for that arm. And so Greg Ward is he can be possession guy. Yeah, there's going to be Ertz, of course. I think it's going to be Ertz and then Greg Ward as far as targets. Van Jefferson is an interesting one because he's pretty much overtaken Josh Reynolds as the third wide receiver there. We'll see how much they actually run three wide receivers in week one. But if they do, go for it. What you want to keep an eye on in those situations is the snap percentage and the air yards. How much were they actually involved for these rookies? That's what you want to look at. Not so much their points and their yards and touchdowns. If that happens, great, you've already got him. Speaking of week one, this is the only game we know James Conner is healthy. I like Benny Snell as a handcuff. Not if I own James Conner because I don't anywhere, but because I like handcuffing other teams' running backs, not my own. And he'd be one I want to do that's pretty much free in most leagues. I mean, I'm not going to bring up Pollard and Madison. They're owned. I know it. Snell often is not. If it is someone, it's probably the Connor owner. Green Bay wide receivers. Take your pick here, whoever you like. I like both in many ways. I think Lazard showed a lot and showed that he had Aaron Rodgers' favor last year. But I also always try to remind myself that it seems to take an extra year for receivers in this Packers offense, if it's even comparable to past years now. But either so, just remember, Devonta Adams was in the same situation that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is this year before Adams broke out. He had disappointed the year before when we thought he could step up and there was need for him to step up. He disappointed. The next year he was very cheap and then he broke out. Not saying MVS is Adams. I'm just saying that maybe we're getting out on him too soon. That's all. And like I was saying before, keep an eye on the Bengals receivers. Who is that third guy? Because eventually AJ Green's probably going to be hurt again, and he might become the number 2 guy. Auden Tate had a stretch where he was producing pretty good in that position last year. But now they have T. Higgins and John Ross. It's the beginning of a season, so he's another one of these. He's healthy. How long, we don't know. Keep an eye on snap percentage, air yards. That's what you want to focus on to be able to know which one you want to go target after week 1. You can't exactly make this move now, but I wanted to say it now so you'd be ready for next week's waivers. All right, let's talk about some streamers for the coming week. Quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, who's right on the line for one quarterback leagues, whether he'd be available. I was able to pick him up in one league. Just realize he's playing the Jets next week, week 2. Jared Goff, Rams are playing the Eagles. I really like that matchup. I think the Eagles are still going to struggle in the secondary. I know they got Slay, right? But it's just one guy. Goff, I don't love him, but he's capable, and this offense is also capable. I think it's just a good matchup for a guy who's often slipping through down even to like the quarterback 20 kind of range. So he is likely available. Mitch Trubisky, it's not pretty. This is for your deeper leagues, either because a lot of teams like to roster multiple quarterbacks for some inexplicable reason, right? They're playing the Giants. We'll know a little more this week if the Giants defense really is all that bad when they play the Steelers. But Mitch Trubisky is not good in the NFL, but he gets points, is the idea. Tight end, Greg Olsen. He could kind of come up and have points week 1, and people are going to be going after him. If you don't like how your tight end turned out week 1, maybe it's a Higbee and he's just doing nothing like he has in past years, anything like that. You had Doyle, I don't know. Greg Olsen's going to be a good option in playing the Patriots. The Patriots have been terrible against tight ends at the beginning of seasons for several seasons now, and they have even more reason to be bad against tight ends with their depleted linebackers this season. Target the Patriots with your tight ends going forward, please, by all means, which means Gesicki could have a good week, by the way. If he's not going to be available, obviously, as a streamer, but maybe you could trade for him. I don't know. Defenses, the Bears are pretty highly owned, but they had a not great divisional matchup against the Lions in week 1, so maybe somebody decided to dump them and go a different way playing the matchup. Just keep an eye on it. They have a good matchup against the Giants. More likely you'll be able to get this one easily. It's the Browns. They're playing the Bengals on Thursday night. Look, the Browns improved their defense, and the Bengals, maybe they can take advantage of that rookie quarterback. Again, maybe Burrow comes out week 1 and is just on fire, and you don't want to face him. That's fine too. But the Browns on a Thursday night, that helps too. That's it. This is it, guys. Let's see how I did. Under 10 minutes. Next week tonight comes out every Friday. There is a full podcast on Fusion Fantasy Football, full website, articles written by me and other people, things like that. check it out, fusionffb.com. You'll also find the podcast there. Just look up Fusion FFB Fantasy Football wherever you get your podcasts. On Twitter at FusionFFB. Any questions about these? Maybe you have a guy that you think would be a good one, but you want my input for some reason on it. Hit me up on there. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good week 1, and I'll see you next week for week 3.